I stopped screaming at my kids? I may not be able to cure you of this, but I feel like the tips that I've got, maybe they could help you. One thing I recommend doing when reading books or listening to videos, anytime you're attempting to glean some goodness from that, I would be prepared to write it down. There is something called Commonplace book. A lot of the greats kept a commonplace, and it's just a notebook that you write down anything that you read or quote that you heard, anything that was inspiring, and it's all in this place. The act of writing it down also helps you to put it in your memory. And what good is a self-help book? What good is a self-help video if you're going to forget everything that you just learned? So might I encourage you to pause the video and maybe grab a notebook or even use notes on your phone, even though the act of writing it is more beneficial according to science. Now that I've lectured you about taking notes, when I was a kid I always was like, why am I taking notes? I just heard you say it, but there's an actual science behind it. And if I'd known that, maybe I would have taken more notes. There are 5 things that I would pay attention to if you're trying not to yell at your kids. One of those things is paying attention to when you are trying to get something done and whether or not you'd like interruptions. Like right now, I'm making this video and I don't want to be interrupted, but I went in it with the expectation that I probably wasn't going to be able to do it without interruptions. So when I am interrupted, it doesn't bother me so bad. I think of all the times that I yelled at my kids. When was I the most frustrated? And it's when I'm trying to do something, get something accomplished, complete something, whether that be doing the dishes or just sitting down and scrolling social media on your phone. You have an intent and you don't want to be interrupted because you have this idea that you're going to be doing this one thing. When you've got such small kids, lots of them, even just one kid, even if they're not so small, they'll likely interrupt you. And if you change your attitude and you look at your children and you look at your life now, there's a lot of things on social media that will make you irritated. I think that it's out there to give you the wrong idea, but from a biblical perspective, God gave you these children, and this season of your life is for raising those children. It's not to say you need to lose yourself, but it's to say your most important mission is raising them. If you have the idea that you will have a change of plans or have interruptions throughout your day in everything that you're trying to do, chances are you're not going to get so irritated. Be mindful that you will be interrupted. And if you have something that you're really set on getting completed, just know that the interruptions are probably going to lead you to losing your cool. Either do those things, but be willing to be interrupted, or wait until... Yuck. Don't bite it, okay? Stop biting it. Yuck. Point number 2 is to pay attention to your hormonal state. You may need so far as to go and get your vitamins and minerals and nutrients checked. Go to a homeopath and get some blood work done and see if you're deficient in anything, because a lot of times our attitude can be out of our control. It's not an excuse, but I think that it's a tool you can use to be more aware of your state of mind. That is one that took me the longest to tackle. The list I'm giving you are things that you can implement right away. Even though I was practicing all of these things, I would still have a period in my life where I would just yell at them. And I would cry, I would talk to my husband, and I keep losing my cool for things that didn't even, there you go, we got it! And I started to track when I would yell. I have my little planner, my calendars, the notes on your phone, your period tracking app where you track your menstrual cycle. And I would note for several months when I was super irritable and agitated, and it came in a cycle, and it has a lot to do with my hormones. Now, this is going to sound silly. Some of you think PMS means you're on your period. PMS is pre-menstrual cycle, which is about the week before and even just a couple days into your period. So pay attention the week before your period. If you know it's coming, you're more aware and able to remedy it before it gets out of hand. Check your cycle. Make little notes for a couple months in your phone or on a calendar. Put a happy face if you're happy that day. Put a sad face if you're not so good that day. And then just watch the pattern so that you can be aware of when you have points of irritability higher than others, and that way you can be ahead of it before it gets out of hand. The third thing that I want to bring up is the thing that everybody knows. Screaming, if you do it all the time, now if you don't do it all the time, screaming will get their attention for sure. But if you scream constantly, they start to tune you out, and that's when you know you've lost them. Screaming hardly ever gets them to do what you need them to do if screaming is your go-to. Pretend that your phone is going on Instagram Live the second you start to feel like you want to scream at your kids. In fact, take your phone and hit record and set it on the countertop, and maybe that will help you to stop yourself from screaming at your kids. And if it doesn't, play the video back and listen to yourself, and I bet you will be so embarrassed and you won't even realize that you were that extreme. There are going to be times where if you do decide to hit record on your device as you reprimand your children, if you review it even that same evening, a couple days later, you're going to listen back like, whoa, like I was a little bit I was a little bit crazy there, and you're going to regret it, probably. Screaming is a good stress reliever for you, and that's really all that it is, because it doesn't teach your children a healthy way to deal with stress. In fact, it's going to teach them to scream, and it's going to interfere with times when you need to scream to get their attention, like if they're running into danger and you holler, they may not pay close attention because they're so jaded by your screaming. Be welcoming of your interruptions, track your cycle, get your vitamins checked. I can guarantee you that whether you get your vitamins checked or not, you can still stop screaming. But I'm telling you, it's going to be a little bit easier to be ahead of it if you're aware of your irritable moments when you're a little bit more sleep deprived that day, or if you're PMSing. Just be more, it'll heighten your awareness so that you can remedy it before it gets really out of hand. And the third one is to basically embarrass yourself, look at yourself, scream in a mirror and see what you look like to your children. Record yourself so you can hear yourself back. And then the final one is you can read 500 How Not to Scream books, but everything is going to go out the window, even everything that I told you when you're about to explode. So if there's anything that you write down, or if there's anything that you take from this video, it's this. Whatever reason it is that we are about to yell at our kids, we know it is not helpful to yell at the kids. It's not beneficial. It's detrimental. It doesn't create peace in your home. We know in our rational state of mind that yelling, screaming, and exploding on our kids is not good, to put it simply. And we can talk about all the reasons why we end up yelling. We can feel justified in why we yelled because we were just pushed past our limits. But the fact is, we know that it's wrong, otherwise you wouldn't be watching this video to try to figure out how to stop yelling. Let's pretend you told your 5-year-old to do something and then they didn't do it. And it's starting to affect the people around them, whether it's like they're pinching their sister's leg with the bench and you're seeing it happening in slow motion, and they're closing the bench and you say, stop closing the bench, stop closing the bench. You can't run up to them because you're changing a baby's diaper and you've got poop all over your hands. You say, stop closing the bench. And then they close the bench and it pinches their sister's leg. So then you scream, I told you that was gonna happen. Why don't you ever listen to me? If you hadn't listened, your sister wouldn't be hurt right now. You know, just screaming, screaming, screaming. We've all done it. You're probably gonna still do it. So give yourself grace, because this is gonna take practice. When you start yelling, try to stop yourself mid-yell and just don't even finish your sentence. Practice it. But this, I'm off track again. Here, there's the scenario. First time you warned your 5-year-old to stop and they didn't, your breathing changed. You're getting irritated. These are the things that you need to notice about yourself. Are you squeezing your fists? Are you starting to talk out of your teeth? Your breathing gets shorter and shorter. What's happening is you're breathing in longer takes than you're breathing out, which rises our cortisol level, which puts us into fight or flight. And no matter what tactic we learned in all these books we read, we are not going to be able to implement that if we are in fight or flight. That is the purpose of fight or flight. We don't want to operate with our higher functioning level of brain because it's fight or flight. We need to make quick decisions or die. And that is what we're sending our body into when we start breathing the way that we are. And once you hit fight or flight, you cannot use a rational state of mind. So all of the things that you've learned and everything you've read about not screaming is going out the window, because you're not even referring to them at that point, because you're not acting from the higher functioning mind. You are acting from fight or flight, and you got there because of your breathing. Your cortisol is rushing through your body now. You're just waiting for that lid. Pinch your daughter's leg. Your breathing is getting shorter and shorter. So when it does, you just lay into them, all of them, and you scream. And you probably know that you scream, but I bet you don't know that you scream as hard as you're screaming. And I bet you don't know the way that your face looks and how contorted it is, and the wrinkles over your nose, and the narrowing of your eyes, and the showing of your teeth, the volume of your yell. So the one thing that has helped me the most out of everything that I've told you is to notice my breathing. And you hear it all the time. That's why for me it's kind of gone out in one ear and out the other, because I'm like, yeah, breathing. Slow down my breathing. Take a deep breath in, count from 10. But the reason why they're telling you to do this is because it helps you regulate your breathing, which prevents you from getting into fight or flight, which keeps you in the higher functioning part of your brain where you can reason and calm yourself down. Breathe out more counts than you're breathing in. The best thing that you can do for everyone is to start breathing, paying attention to your breathing, because that'll keep you out of fight or flight, and that will keep you in your higher functioning state of mind, and will prevent you from screaming, and you will have more control over how you react. As Christians, as wives and mothers, we are called to be peacemakers. We set the tones for our homes. Pay attention to when you wake up in a bad mood and you're kind of fuming around the house in the morning. Chances are that attitude will catch on. As a Christian, we are called to be gentle. We are called to be peaceful. We are told to be slow to anger. And these are all for the benefit of our children and ourselves, our husbands, and our home life. So stopping yourself from screaming, stopping yourself from exploding is a Christian duty. And it isn't something that you should just brush under the rug as something that you just happen to do. You need to actively try to stop. Hopefully these tips will help you. One of the most important things you can do is to start praying about it. And one of the most helpful tips out of all of these is to pay attention to your breathing so that you can slow down. And there is no situation where you need to act now, and that's going to come later in a video I'm making about discipline. The child did not listen to you. The other child got hurt. You have slowed down your breathing. And you don't have to reprimand the child right then and there. You want to, because one of your other children got hurt, you're angry and you want to lash out. But the emotions are high, and neither one of those children are going to learn anything from an exploding mother. Science shows us that after emotions are calmed down, maybe in a couple hours, maybe in bath time where you're just kind of sitting there listening to them chat, you can talk about what had happened and make it a teaching moment instead of an exploding moment. Just know that when you're practicing your breathing, slowing your breathing down, you're starting to get angry, you don't need to discipline them. You don't need to act on it right now. Calm yourself down, make sure everyone is okay, and then talk about it later. Whether it's 10 minutes later, 2 hours later, you're going to be able to better teach your children and guide your children when you are more calm. And that is the number one tip. Pay attention to when you're most irritable. Is it a matter of discipline? Are your children not obeying you? Is it because you're getting interrupted because you're doing something you want to do? Is it your PMS week? Did you not sleep very much? Be mindful of your triggers and what has sent you the most, and so that you can be ahead of when that's going to happen. Listen to yourself a couple times. Look at yourself in the mirror when you're screaming a couple times. Think about how your children are going to learn to act just like you. And most importantly, pay attention to when you're starting to get angry and slow your breaths down. If you have any questions as to what I would do in a specific situation, write a scenario down in the comment and be like, what would you do in this moment? And I will answer. Because sometimes I watch videos or I listen to parenting advice and I'm like, well, what about this situation? Because it just doesn't seem like I can apply it. And I'm here to make videos to try to help you. I don't want to just blab about something in a video. I genuinely want to help you find peace. Okay? I'll see you in my next video.